Hello there. The experts at Pro Tax Accountant have put this guide together because, frankly, there's a huge shift coming to the UK tax world in April 2026. It's a change that's going to directly hit the temporary labor market, and if you're not prepared, it could put your business in some serious financial trouble. So let's get you ready.
And honestly, that is not an overstatement. If you're a contractor, you run a recruitment agency, or you're a business that brings in temporary staff, you absolutely need to hear this. The whole system for who's responsible for unpaid tax is about to be flipped on its head. And as you're about to see, pleading ignorance just won't be an option.
You know, this isn't just some vague threat. This quote comes straight from a recent HMRC press release. They've already started to publicly name and shame professionals, including a barrister of all people, for designing these kinds of schemes. It sends a really clear message. HMRC is no longer just chasing the small fish. They are moving right up the supply chain, targeting businesses that probably thought they were completely safe from this kind of risk.
Right, so to get you fully up to speed, here's what we're going to cover. We'll start with why this is all happening. Then, we'll break down the new rules in plain English and figure out who is now responsible. After that, we'll look at a real-world example before giving you a straightforward checklist to keep your business safe.
So, first things first, why now? What's the big driver behind this massive change? Well, it all boils down to one absolutely jaw-dropping number.
£46.8 billion. That's the UK's tax gap for the 2025-26 tax year. Just let that sink in. It's the gigantic gulf between the tax that HMRC is supposed to get and what it actually manages to collect. A massive slice of that missing money comes from dodgy dealings in complex supply chains, and right now, the umbrella company market is firmly in their sights. This new law is their weapon to close that gap.
And here's the thing. These aren't state secrets. These are the exact warning signs HMRC has been shouting from the rooftops. They're on the lookout for anything that seems too good to be true. You know, arrangements with payments disguised as loans, or payslips that just don't look right. So if you see any of this stuff in your own supply chain, you have to treat it as a huge flashing red light.
Okay, so we understand the why. Now for the what. This is where the new law really shows its teeth. It brings in a legal idea that you absolutely have to get your head around.
It's called joint and several liability. The best way to think about it is like this. Imagine you're sharing a flat, and you're both on the rental agreement. If your flatmate suddenly decides to stop paying their half of the rent and does a runner, guess what? The landlord can legally come after you for the entire bill. That is exactly what this new rule means for tax. If a dodgy umbrella company disappears with a huge tax bill, HMRC can now come knocking on your door for the full amount.
Now, please listen carefully, because this might be the single most important point of this entire discussion. There is no statutory defense. I'm going to say that again. No statutory defense. Under this new rule, it doesn't matter if you did all the right checks. It doesn't matter if the umbrella company lied to you or gave you fake documents. It doesn't even matter if you acted with the best intentions. If the tax doesn't get paid downstream, the liability moves upstream to you. Simple as that.
So, the penny's dropped. Someone else's tax problem can now become your tax problem. The next logical question is, who exactly is on the hook? Who's in the firing line?
And this is the change in a nutshell. Before, all the risk was piled onto the umbrella company itself. If they went bust or vanished, HMRC was often left with a debt it couldn't collect. From April 2026, that risk is officially shared. The liability for that unpaid tax gets passed up the chain to someone the law calls the relevant party.
So, who is this relevant party? Well, most of the time it's going to be the recruitment agency at the top of the chain, the one dealing with the final client. But, and this is a big but, the end client, the actual business using the worker, can become liable too. That happens if they contract straight with the umbrella, if they use an agency based outside the UK, or if their agency is legally connected to the umbrella. You really need to map out your supply chains right now and see exactly where you stand.
And don't for a second think you can get around this with some clever paperwork. HMRC has thought of that. They've created this new idea of a purported umbrella company. It's basically their way of saying, we don't care what you call it. If it looks like an umbrella arrangement and acts like one, even if you're paying people as self-employed, these new liability rules are still going to apply. They're looking at the reality, not the label.
Okay, that's a lot of legal jargon, I get it. Let's make it real. How does this actually affect a real business on a normal day? Let's walk through a classic example.
So, let's say a tech firm in London needs a top-notch IT consultant. They call up a recruitment agency they trust. The agency finds the perfect person. Let's call her Sarah.
Now, to handle all the payroll, the agency uses an umbrella company. But this umbrella company is a rogue one. It collects all the money, pays Sarah her share, but pockets the tax instead of paying it to HMRC. Then it vanishes. In the past, that was HMRC's headache. From April 2026, HMRC will just send a bill for all of Sarah's unpaid tax and national insurance directly to the recruitment agency.
Seeing it laid out like that should be a bit of a wake-up call, right? The risk is very real and it's big. Stay with me here, because the next part is the most important bit. We're going to move from the problem to the solution. Let's talk about the practical steps you can and should be taking right now.
Look, this isn't about causing panic, it's about being prepared. The deadline is April 2026, which gives you time, but you really do need to start now. Here is a clear 5-step checklist to help you build your defense.
First up, go through every single umbrella supplier you work with right now with a fine-tooth comb. Second, create a formal approved supplier list and make sure everybody on your team sticks to it, no exceptions. 3, and this is so important, this is not a one-and-done check. You have to keep monitoring them regularly. 4, get your hands on some pay slips and check them for anything weird. Use HMRC's own online calculator to see if the numbers actually make sense. And finally, step 5, please don't try and figure this all out on your own. Get some proper expert advice on your entire setup.
And here's a brilliant pro tip from the team at Pro Tax Accountant. A completely legitimate, compliant umbrella company will be an open book. They will have zero problem showing you proof that they're making their monthly tax and national insurance payments to HMRC. So ask for it. If they start making excuses or refuse, that's your cue to run a mile.
Okay, following that checklist is your absolute baseline. But let's just zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture and some other ways you might structure things as part of your new strategy.
Look, using a good, compliant umbrella company is still a perfectly fine way to operate. But, as we've just seen, it now comes with a huge need for due diligence and that nagging risk of liability. You could bring payroll in-house, which gives you total control but also way more admin. Or you can work with contractors through their own limited companies. But that means you need a bulletproof process for dealing with IR35. Every option has its pros and cons. Now, before we wrap up, we have to make this very clear. The information we've shared today is for general guidance. It's designed to make you aware of the issues, but you shouldn't rely on it alone to make big financial decisions.
And that is exactly why you must speak to a qualified professional. So if you're now worried about your liability, if you think your list of partners needs a professional once-over, or you just want some clarity to protect your business, get in touch with the experts at Pro Tax Accountant. Their details are right there on the screen. They can give you the specific expert advice that's tailored to your business, helping you get ready for these changes.
So I'm going to leave you with one final thought. From April 2026, your supply chain is officially your tax responsibility. The only question left is, are you prepared? For more essential updates just like this one, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for your time.